Section 3.4 is parallel lines and transversals. So, corresponding angles postulate says that if two parallel lines, for example M and N, are cut by a transversal, then all corresponding angles are congruent. So angle 1 and angle 5 are corresponding, so they are congruent. Angle 3 and angle 7 are corresponding, so they are congruent. Angle 2 and angle 6 are corresponding, so they are congruent. Angle 4 and angle 8 are corresponding, so they are congruent. Now, corresponding angles are only congruent if the two lines are parallel, so if M is parallel to N. Otherwise, if they're not parallel, we don't know that corresponding angles are congruent. So for example, these are both in the top right position, so they're corresponding angles, which means that angle 6 is also 60 degrees. Here, angle 5 and the 135 degree angle are both in the top left position, so they're both 135 degrees. 90 and angle 2 are both in the top right position, so they're corresponding, so we know the measure of angle 2 is also 90 degrees. Same thing here, angle 1 is 120 degrees, angle 2 is 145 degrees, and angle 3 is 45 degrees. Okay, they're all in the same positions, they're all corresponding, and since the lines are parallel, you can see they're marked parallel in each one of these problems, that means that my corresponding angles are congruent. Now we also know that alternate interior angles are congruent if the two lines are parallel. So for example, here's my inside angles, right? Inside the two lines, here's my interior angles. So 3 and 6 are alternate interior angles, 4 and 5 are alternate interior angles. And since the lines are parallel, then they are congruent. So for example, find the measure of angle PQR. So PQR is here. Well, it's an alternate interior angle with the 35 degree angle, so the measure of angle PQR is also 35 degrees. And for alternate interior angles, you can always draw this Z-like, right? This is kind of like a backward Z in this example, but you can always draw the Z-like figure to help you find those two alternate interior angles. So here we want to know the measure of angle PQR. So there's that. So it's alternate interior angles with this 120 degree angle, so it is also 120 degrees. And again, here's angle PQR. So since this one is 70 degrees, the alternate interior angle is 70 degrees. Okay. Down here, angle 4 is also 90 degrees. Here, angle 5 is also 65 degrees. And here the measure of angle 6 is also 100 degrees. Alternate exterior angles. If two parallel lines are cut by a transversal, so again these have to be parallel, then we know that alternate exterior angles are congruent. So these angles are on the outside of my two lines and on the opposite side of the transversal. So angle 2 is congruent to angle 7, angle 1 is congruent to angle 8. So this example says find the measure of angle 1 and angle 2. Well, 75 degrees is an alternate exterior angle with angle 2. So we also know that the measure of angle 2 is 75 degrees. Now, we don't know anything about the relationship between the 75 degree angle and angle 1, but we do know that angle 1 and angle 2 form a straight line, which means that angle 1 plus angle 2 is 180 degrees. So if I take 180 and subtract 75, we're left with 105 degrees for the measure of angle 1. So you can see that 105 plus 75 equals 180 degrees. And that's how many degrees are in a line. So here we have alternate exterior angles, so the measure of angle 7 is also 130 degrees. Here we have alternate exterior angles, so measure of angle 8 is 42 degrees, and here we have alternate exterior angles, so the measure of angle 9 is also 90 degrees. So corresponding alternate interior and alternate exterior angles are congruent. So if we look, measure of angle 1 and 8. Those are alternate exterior angles, so they are congruent. Okay. How about 3 and 4? So 3 and 4, they make a straight line, but that doesn't mean that they are congruent. Angle 4 and 2, same thing. They make a straight line, but that doesn't mean that they're congruent. They're not corresponding, they're not alternate interior, and they're not alternate exterior. Angle 2 and angle 7, those are alternate exterior angles, so we know that they are congruent. Angle 3 and angle 7, so 3 and 7, those are both in the bottom left-hand position, so they're congruent because they're corresponding angles. And then angle 3 and angle 8. Angle 3 and angle 8. Ooh, 3's on the inside, 8's on the outside, so there's no relationship between those two, so they are not congruent. They're not corresponding, they're not alternate interior, and they're not alternate exterior, because one's on the inside and one's on the outside. Now, same side interior angles are kind of the oddball. So if two parallel lines are cut by a transversal, so we can see that line M and N are parallel, then the same side interior angles are supplementary. So same side supplementary. So a way to help you remember this is SSS. So we know that angle 3 and angle 5 add up to 180 degrees because they're same side interior angles, and we know angle 4 and angle 6 add up to 180 degrees. So for example, these same side interior angles add up to 180. So 180 minus that 80 degree angle means that the measure of angle 5 is 100 degrees. Over here, we know that these are same side interior angles, so they're going to add up to 180 degrees. They're supplementary. So 180 minus 130 is 50 degrees for the measure of angle 6. The last section, we have variable expressions. So it says find the value of x. So you have to determine what the relationship between these two angles is. These are corresponding angles because they're both in the top right corner, and corresponding angles are congruent. Congruent means the same measure, which means they're equal. So we can set them equal. So I'm going to subtract 15 from both sides, and we get 110 equals x. Again, those are corresponding angles, so they're congruent, so we can set them equal. These are same side interior angles. They're on the inside of my two lines, and they're on the same side of the transversal. We know that same side interior angles are supplementary, meaning that they add up to 180 degrees. So we add them together, and they're going to equal 180. I'm going to combine like terms. 78 minus 2 is 76. Subtract 76 from both sides, and we get x equals 104. If you were to plug in 104 here, you'd have 104 minus 2. That means the measure of this angle is 102, and you can see that 78 plus 102 adds up to 180, so we know that we're correct. These are alternate interior angles. They're on the inside, and alternate interior angles are congruent. They're equal if these lines are parallel, which they are. So let's subtract 35 from both sides, and we get 85 equals x. And if you were to plug 85 in here, you would see that this angle measure is 120 degrees. So they are in fact congruent. And our last one, we don't have alternate interior angles. We don't have same side interior angles, and we don't have corresponding angles. But we did learn that if one of these angle measures is 90, then all 4 of these are 90. So now we do have corresponding angles that are both in the top left position. So we do know that 90 equals 2x plus 10. Subtract 10 from both sides, 80 equals 2x. Divide both sides by 2, and we get 40 equals x. Now, there's a couple different ways you could have done this one. You do have alternate interior angles here, so we also know alternate interior angles are equal, so you could do it that way as well.